The Galactic Council chamber was usually a place of calm discussion, careful diplomacy, and slow decision-making. But on this day, the air inside the Great Hall felt heavy, charged with tension that even the thick glass walls and floating luminescent banners could not soften. Dozens of species sat in their assigned seats, murmuring among themselves, their voices echoing around the high ceiling. Everything had led to this moment, the final vote on Earth's exile. For years, humanity had been a mystery to the Council. They grew fast, learned faster, and pushed boundaries that other species would not dare to approach. Their inventions appeared as sparks that turned into flames overnight. Their explorers crossed dangerous regions of space without fear. Their diplomats argued boldly. Their scientists ignored limitations, and their soldiers were known for fighting until the last possible moment. Some species admired the humans, others feared them. But the Council had come to one agreement. Humanity was becoming too unpredictable. At the center of the chamber, the High Speaker, an elder creature with crystalline skin, raised one shimmering hand. The hall slowly fell silent. A soft vibration spread across the room, the signal that the vote would begin. The speaker's voice rang out, calm and cold. The question before us: shall Earth and humanity be exiled from all Council territories, removed from shared networks, and cut off from our alliance systems? Light panels in front of each representative flickered. One by one, they cast their votes. Red for exile, blue for mercy. In the end, the majority glowed red. Earth was exiled. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Some representatives lowered their heads. Others seemed relieved. A few looked guilty. But the decision was final. It would be delivered to humanity within the hour. The speaker announced the vote with a tone that tried to sound neutral, but could not hide the tension. By the law of the Council, humanity will be removed from all shared knowledge streams, closed out of star lanes, and denied access to integrated technology. They may respond within 72 hours. If no response is received, the exile becomes permanent. Many expected drama. They imagined human ambassadors marching into the chamber, angry and defiant. They imagined demands, accusations, or at the very least, a loud debate. Humanity had always been loud. They were passionate, expressive, and sometimes overwhelming. But nothing happened. The Council waited for Earth's answer. An hour passed, 3 hours, 10 hours, still nothing. Human embassies across Council space went dim. Their signals turned quiet. Their communication hubs stopped replying. Their merchants closed shops early. Their exploration fleets changed course without sending notices. For the first time in centuries, the humans were truly silent. At first, the Council believed it was a negotiating tactic. Maybe humanity wanted to build tension before speaking. But on the second day, Council observers noticed something stranger. Human ships were leaving, not just moving, vanishing. Every Terran freighter, warship, research vessel, and tiny scout ship began a coordinated withdrawal. They departed from ports, stations, and trade routes across the galaxy without speaking to anyone. They waited for no permissions, made no complaints, and asked for no final trade deals. Humans who had lived for years, among other species, packed what little they owned, said quiet goodbyes, and joined the endless line of departing ships. By the end of the third day, Council space felt different. Empty, quiet, wrong. The official deadline arrived. Humanity still had not spoken a single word in response to their exile. The Council expected anger. They expected protests. They expected human stubbornness. But they did not expect silence. Silence was worse. Silence was frightening. A week after the exile vote, the Council held another emergency meeting. Representatives argued among themselves, confused and increasingly worried. "This is not normal human behavior," a reptilian delegate hissed. "Where are their demands? Their arguments?" "They left too fast," said a winged ambassador. "They had no reason to abandon everything so suddenly. They must have prepared for this." "But when?" another asked. "How?" We monitored their activities closely. A deep concern settled over them. The humans had always been open about their projects, or at least loud enough that rumors spread. If they were planning something big, they usually made noise, yet this departure had been perfectly organized, perfectly quiet, and perfectly hidden. The Council's science division suggested sending a reconnaissance team to the Sol system, the home system of humanity. The vote passed with surprising ease. Even the species who disliked humans wanted answers now. Silence from humanity felt unnatural, like the calm before a storm. The reconnaissance fleet consisted of 5 ships. They were not warships, but they carried experienced crews and advanced scanning tools. As the fleet approached the Sol system, the journey felt eerie. Human-made listening posts that normally greeted travelers with cheerful messages were empty. Navigation beacons were switched off. Even the usual streams of data that filled the region were missing. It felt like traveling through the skeleton of a once-living creature. When the fleet arrived at Earth's orbit, every member of the Council delegation stared at the view screens in disbelief. Earth looked untouched. Blue oceans. Green continents. Bright city lights scattered across the night side of the planet. But there was one clear difference: no human presence. Not a single signal. Not a single transmission, not a single life reading. The cities were intact, but lifeless. The orbital docks hung silent in space, their metal frames glowing faintly from solar light. Satellites drifted without active control. The moon bases were empty. Mars colonies were abandoned. It was as if humanity had simply walked away from their entire home system. And then the fleet's scanners detected something beneath Earth's crust: massive energy signatures. Too large to hide. Too precise to be natural. Planetary-scale engines, the lead scientist whispered. Ancient or new, I cannot tell. But this is not standard human design, another voice added nervously. Earth is not dying. These energy structures are waiting. The officers exchanged fearful looks. Had humanity built something beneath their own planet? Something so large that even the Council never noticed? Something powerful enough to make Earth itself dangerous? But then one officer pointed at the solar readings. The sun is different too. Its patterns are unnatural. It was true. The star, known as Sol, pulsed in rhythms. Not random fluctuations, but deliberate, exact mathematical sequences. Like a heartbeat. Like a signal. The fleet commander ordered a full scan. The results were worse than expected. The sun is being modified. The energy signatures match some kind of mega-engineering project. The chamber of officers fell silent. Humanity had always been ambitious, but altering their own star in secret? That level of engineering was centuries beyond anything the Council believed humans could do. The commander sent a full report back to the Council. Within hours, panic spread through the political ranks. Many leaders regretted pressing for Earth's exile. They had pushed humanity away, and humanity had gone somewhere far beyond their understanding. But the humans left no hostile weapons behind, no warnings, no threats, only silence. Until the fleet found a small transmission beacon floating near one of the outer planets. It activated when scanned, projecting a short message into space, written in simple Terran standard: "We will not argue. We will not bargain. We will not remain." And then the device turned off forever. Across the galaxy, species whispered rumors. Some believed humanity was preparing for war. Others thought they had found a new home. A few believed they were building technology the Council had never imagined. But the truth remained unknown. Humanity had not protested their exile. They had simply disappeared, and that silence echoed louder than any battle cry. The Council had underestimated humanity. And deep in their hearts, they sensed they had made a terrible mistake, one that would shape the future of the galaxy in ways none of them could yet imagine. The silence from humanity's departure had left a deep scar across the galaxy. As weeks turned into months, the absence of human activity in Council space felt unnatural. Planets that had once thrived with the chaos and energy of human presence now stood still. The trade routes that humanity had once maintained were empty, and their research stations, where new breakthroughs had constantly been discovered, were silent. Even the grand human fleet, which had once patrolled deep into the unknown sectors, was gone. For some species, the relief was palpable. Without humans interfering with their carefully laid plans, the quieter species could finally return to their agendas. But for others, a deep sense of loss settled in. Humanity, with all its flaws and unpredictability, had been a force of balance in the galaxy. They were the unpredictable variable, the ones who stood up to larger, more powerful forces, and did not back down. Their absence left a void that no one had anticipated. The Council, now faced with an unsettling emptiness, began to panic. Some species demanded that the remaining fleets search for humanity, believing they had fled to the farthest reaches of space. Others suggested that humanity had been destroyed in some way, and that their silence was merely the result of a cataclysmic event. But one thing was clear: humanity had not disappeared. They had simply chosen to disappear from the Council's gaze. And the Council had no idea where they had gone, or what they were doing now. Far from the eyes of the galaxy's great leaders, on the edge of known space, humanity's great project had already begun to unfold. The human fleets, though now scattered across distant systems, had been working together in secret for months. It had started long before the Exile vote. Humanity had planned for this moment, the moment they would be cast out. For years, they had been building what the Council would never expect: the means to leave the galaxy entirely. In a remote system near the galactic rim, a massive human-engineered structure was nearing completion. At its heart was an enormous energy core, capable of producing the unimaginable amount of energy needed to push an entire solar system across the boundaries of known space. Humanity had achieved what no other species could even fathom: the ability to escape the galaxy. The secret project had been given only the code name Exodus. And it was not just a single ship, nor a single station. It was a network. It was a fleet of ships, each with its own purpose, its own power, its own mission. Some ships were designed for transport, others for defense, and others still for scientific research. But all of them were bound for the unknown, far beyond the galactic boundary. They were leaving the galaxy, and they were going to make sure the Council never knew what hit them. Each ship was equipped with a special device, a piece of technology humanity had designed using their own form of quantum manipulation. This device would allow them to manipulate the fabric of space itself. When activated, it would create a slipstream, a pathway through the universe that no other species could use or follow. The device would turn space into a river, and the humans would ride that river far beyond the galaxy, to a place where the Council's influence could never reach them again. The first signs of humanity's great plan began to ripple through Council space when strange phenomena started to occur. Ships in several systems reported sudden power surges, followed by the disappearance of human vessels. But there was no explosion, no destruction, just the vanishing of entire ships and stations in an instant. Council scientists scrambled to investigate. They studied the energy readings coming from the regions where these disappearances occurred. What they found was unlike anything they had ever seen before. There were traces of a new kind of energy, highly concentrated and engineered with purpose. But it was impossible to pinpoint its origin. It wasn't coming from any known source. It was as if the very fabric of space had been manipulated, stretched, and twisted. At the heart of the mystery was a singular question: where were the humans going? In a meeting held months after the Exile, the Council leaders gathered once more. This time, however, they were not concerned with human defiance. They were concerned with the growing uncertainty surrounding their disappearance. Had humanity truly disappeared? Or was this a plan for something much greater? The speaker, still trembling from the initial vote, addressed the room with a voice that was no longer calm. There are no signs of humanity. They are not within the known systems. They are not on any inhabited worlds. Their ships and stations gone, disappeared, as if they never existed. A deep murmur spread through the room. "I believe the time has come for us to acknowledge a painful truth," said the High Ambassador from a distant star system, a species known for its advanced neural networks. Humanity's silence was not a defeat. It was a message. A message that they no longer need us. But where are they now? A delegate from a reptilian species demanded. "They've been silent for too long. They have made no threats, no demands. How can we not know where they are? The tension in the room was palpable. Some delegates were furious. Others were frightened. What could humanity possibly be doing that was so powerful, so mysterious, that even the best minds in the galaxy could not find them? Back in the heart of humanity's secret project, the final preparations were taking place. The Exodus fleet had reached its full strength. Dozens of ships, including enormous capital ships, were positioned at key points within a hidden system far beyond the reach of any Council vessel. Inside one of the largest ships, the human captain known only as Captain Vance stood before the viewport, staring out into the vast emptiness of space. Behind him, the crew worked tirelessly, checking and rechecking their systems. The energy core was nearly ready. The device they had built to fold space was almost fully calibrated. Captain Vance had always known that humanity would face difficulties in its bid for freedom, but now, as the final moments approached, he felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. They were about to do something no one had ever attempted before. They were about to leave the galaxy behind forever. But it would not be an escape, it would be a declaration. "We are not running," he said to his first officer. "We're just leaving. We're making our own path." His first officer nodded. "It's what we've always done. We make our own way. No one told us how to survive, how to thrive. We've always done that ourselves." The captain turned back to the viewport. His eyes narrowed as he thought about the Council and their decision to exile Earth. It had been a mistake. But humanity had no intention of asking for forgiveness. They didn't need the Council anymore. They never had. The countdown to launch had begun. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, strange things began to happen. Systems that had once been stable started to experience unusual gravitational shifts. Stars dimmed in ways they should not. The fabric of space itself seemed to warp, bend, and twist. The Council sent out fleets to investigate. But they found nothing. No answers. Only more questions. In secret, humanity's great plan was already in motion. A fleet of human ships was poised to depart. But not for war, not for conquest. They were leaving to explore a new future, one that existed far beyond the Council's borders. And as the first of the Exodus ships powered up its engines, a voice across the galaxy whispered a single, simple truth. "We are not your problem anymore." The galaxy was about to change. But the Council still did not know that humanity was already gone. The days and weeks that followed humanity's disappearance were filled with confusion, speculation, and fear. The Council, in its infinite wisdom, had believed that by exiling Earth, they would have forced humanity into submission, into compliance with their rules. What they hadn't expected was the quiet rebellion that followed, a rebellion in which humanity didn't fight with weapons, but with their silence. Now, as reports of strange gravitational anomalies, unexplained energy pulses, and disappearing ships flooded in from all directions, the Council's confidence began to crack. The initial belief that humanity had simply left the galaxy to sulk had been shattered. What the Council had dismissed as a passing reaction had now become an undeniable, active force. As the galactic leaders convened in their most secret chambers, their worst fears were becoming clearer. "There are no more traces of human vessels in the known systems," said the High Ambassador from the Xerax, a species with hyper-intelligent scanners. His voice echoed through the Grand Chamber as he gazed at the holographic map of the galaxy. "Their ships have disappeared into nowhere." "What do you mean, nowhere?" demanded a delegate from the feline-like Vishara species, his voice dripping with impatience. The Xerax ambassador, whose race was known for their calm, calculated demeanor, did not flinch. "We've searched the edges of the galaxy. We've detected quantum signatures, distortions, and even anomalies that suggest humanity's ships are traveling beyond our reach. Wherever they are, it's not a place we can follow." A murmur spread through the room, and the Speaker of the Council, once calm and collected, seemed on edge. "This cannot be. The Exodus fleet was meant to be isolated beyond the fringes, yes, but certainly not capable of escaping our detection. There must be an explanation." "There is," came the cold reply from a familiar voice, a voice humanity had often crossed swords with in debates. It was the Orcs, a race of merciless warriors who had long thought humanity to be too chaotic and dangerous. "It seems," the Orcs delegate continued, "that you have underestimated the humans' ingenuity. It seems they have created something beyond the Council's control." The Council went silent. A new fear was settling in. Humanity, once thought of as unpredictable and reckless, was showing a side they had never expected: quiet, deliberate, and powerful. Far beyond the reach of the Council's influence, the first test of humanity's great project had begun. The Exodus fleet had fully activated its slipstream technology, and a massive rift in space began to form. This was no ordinary hyperspace jump. This was a breakthrough, a manipulation of space itself. Captain Vance stood at the command center of the largest ship in the Exodus fleet, the Nomad's Dream. The ship's massive engines hummed with power as the crew worked in sync, their faces bathed in the soft glow of the control panels. They were ready. "The quantum engines are online," said his first officer, her voice calm but laced with excitement. "We're about to begin the first phase." Vance looked out of the viewport at the gathering of ships. Dozens of vessels, each part of the Exodus fleet, were lined up in formation. The stars outside the window blurred and stretched into lines as the gravitational slipstream began to form. It was like watching space bend and twist before his eyes. This was the moment. "I want every ship to remain in formation," Vance said, his voice steady. "Once we break through, there's no going back." The first officer nodded. "Understood, Captain." A countdown began, echoing through the ship. The energy readings were off the charts as the fleet prepared for the unimaginable, leaving the galaxy behind. Humanity was not just running away. They were claiming a future of their own, a future far beyond the control of the Galactic Council. Back in Council space, news of the anomalies continued to spread. Some ships had reported seeing flashes of light, strange, glowing ribbons of energy cutting across the galaxy, like lightning. The reports were vague and confusing. There were no clear answers. No one knew where humanity had gone, or what they had done. A deep sense of unease took root in the Council. The galaxy's most powerful species, those who had long controlled the flow of information, trade, and power, were now facing an unknown force, a force that had once been their ally, their partner in the great experiment of civilization. But no more. Humanity was gone, and now, the galaxy felt empty in ways that could not be explained. The Xerax were the first to take action. They dispatched a fleet to the last known coordinates of the Exodus fleet, hoping to find some clue as to what had occurred. Their mission was clear: to investigate the rift, to understand how humanity had bent the very fabric of space, and perhaps, to stop them from reaching whatever lay beyond the galaxy. The journey was long, but when the Xerax fleet arrived at the edge of the rift, they were stunned. The rift was immense, stretching across the stars, impossibly large, and growing. It was as if space itself had torn open. A massive ship, the Nomad's Dream, emerged from the heart of the rift, its engines glowing with the raw power of a star. It was the flagship of the Exodus fleet, and it was heading straight for the Xerax fleet. The Xerax ships tried to engage, sending warning signals, hailing the Nomad's Dream, but there was no response. The humans had made it clear there was no going back. The first officer on the Xerax ship, Commander Quatha, was the first to speak. "They are not attacking. They are leaving, and there is nothing we can do to stop them." The captain of the Xerax fleet, Commander Drek, watched in stunned silence as the human fleet continued its course, disappearing into the growing rift. He had never seen anything like it. Humanity's ships were entering a space that was not governed by the same laws of physics the galaxy knew. They were breaking through the barrier between known space and something else. "Commander," Quatha said, "what do we do now?" Drek's mind raced. He had never imagined something like this. Humanity had always been unpredictable. But this was beyond anything he could have foreseen. "We report back to the Council," Drek said finally, "and we warn them. We can no longer pretend that humanity is a minor problem. They are something far more powerful than we ever imagined." As the Exodus fleet continued its journey, humanity's ships began to fade into the rift. Each ship moved with purpose, leaving behind the galaxy they had once called home. There was no turning back, no regrets, no final words. Captain Vance stood at the command center of the Nomad's dream, staring out into the unknown. The rift was now behind them, and what lay ahead was a mystery. But one thing was certain: humanity would never be tied down by the rules of the Galactic Council again. "We're free," Vance whispered. He didn't need to say more. The fleet was a living testament to their achievement. They had done the impossible. They had left the galaxy behind. Back in the galaxy, the Council was left with no answers. They could no longer track humanity's ships. They could no longer find their way. Humanity had not just left. They had taken control of their own destiny. The galaxy, once filled with the noise of civilizations, had fallen silent. And in that silence, the Council began to understand the true meaning of humanity's departure. The galaxy had been their playground. Now, it was humanity's turn to find their own path. The galaxy had never been more uncertain. Years of stability, carefully crafted treaties, and cautious alliances between hundreds of species had been shattered by one unexpected event: the sudden, complete disappearance of humanity. And the more the Council searched for answers, the deeper the mystery became. Humanity's ships, having entered the rift, were no longer traceable by any known technology. The anomaly, the space rift they had created with their advanced slipstream technology, had expanded far beyond the initial area. What once had been a narrow, controlled rift was now a vast tear in the fabric of space, a dangerous, mysterious gateway to regions beyond the Council's comprehension. And in the heart of it, humanity's fleet had disappeared. News of humanity's escape spread across the galaxy, sparking fear, curiosity, and anger. What had humanity done? Where had they gone? And what did it mean for the future of the galaxy? Back in Council space, debates raged. The Exile vote, once thought to be a successful move to limit humanity's influence, had instead become a turning point in galactic history. No one was quite sure how to handle the implications. Some factions pushed for further investigation into the rift, hoping to find a way to follow humanity and either rein in their boldness or, if necessary, neutralize the threat they now represented. Others believed humanity had simply escaped, no longer a part of the galaxy, leaving them with the opportunity to consolidate power and move forward without interference. But one thing was certain: the galaxy had been changed forever. The Council's once unchallenged power now seemed fragile. Humanity's swift and silent departure had shown just how quickly everything could be upended. Species that had once viewed the humans as a minor annoyance now found themselves questioning everything they had taken for granted. How had humanity, a species that had been a minor player in galactic politics for less than a century, managed to do something so radical? In the distant reaches of space, far beyond the galaxy, humanity's Exodus fleet continued its journey. Captain Vance stood at the bridge of the Nomad's dream, his hands clasped behind his back as he looked out at the endless black expanse of space ahead. The rift had closed behind them. The galaxy, now a distant memory. A place that no longer mattered. The fleet had successfully made it to their destination, a region beyond the galaxy. A space untouched by the conflicts, the politics, and the limitations of the Council. They had achieved what no other species had ever dared to attempt: to leave the galaxy and chart a new path for themselves. The journey had been long, but the human spirit had never wavered. They had built their own slipstream technology, designed to navigate the void beyond the galaxy's edge. They had found a way to travel faster, farther, and safer than any other race could imagine. And now, they were free. "Captain," a voice broke through his thoughts. It was the first officer, her face illuminated by the soft light of the bridge. "We're approaching the new system. The scanners are picking up strange energy readings." Vance nodded but said nothing. The unknown had always been part of humanity's journey. They thrived on exploration, on discovering new frontiers, and this was the greatest frontier of all. He looked out at the stars, vast, silent, and mysterious. There was no map here, no boundaries, no council. "This is it," he said quietly. "We're going to find out what's beyond the galaxy." Weeks passed, and the fleet explored the new system, scanning planets and moons that had never been charted. The stars here were different, distant, faint, and cold. But the human fleet pressed on. They encountered nothing familiar, but that was the point. The unknown was humanity's canvas, and they had no intention of letting it remain blank for long. As the fleet ventured deeper into the region, they encountered phenomena that were beyond any human understanding. Gravity wells that bent space-time. Stars that flickered out, only to reignite moments later. Asteroids that seemed to defy the laws of physics. But the humans pressed on. For the first time, they were in control of their own destiny, unbound by the rules of the galaxy they had left behind. But then, something happened. A signal. A strange, alien signal that seemed to emanate from the heart of this unknown space. It was faint, distorted, but it was unmistakable. The humans had encountered someone out here. Vance stood at the command console, his eyes narrowing as the signal was decoded. It was a message. But from whom? And what did it mean? "Captain," the officer at the communications console called out. "We've got a response. It's from a ship. But it's not one of ours." Vance's mind raced. Was this an alien civilization? A remnant of some long-forgotten species? Or something more? He stood tall, as he always did when faced with the unknown. "Patch it through," he ordered. "Let's hear what they have to say." Across the galaxy, the Council was still reeling from humanity's escape. The exiled humans had vanished into the unknown, and the implications of their departure were only just beginning to sink in. Some of the more cautious species, such as the Xerax and the Vashara, began to question their previous confidence. Could humanity have discovered something that even the Council didn't understand? Were they truly as dangerous as some had feared? Or was this simply the next step in their unpredictable journey? But there were others who refused to acknowledge humanity's potential. The Orcs, for example, still viewed the humans with contempt. They had always thought humanity's impulsive nature would eventually lead to their destruction. But now, the Orcs found themselves watching from the sidelines as the humans set out to carve their own path. And with each passing day, their pride and stubbornness turned to frustration. Humanity was not gone. They were out there, somewhere, rewriting the rules of space and time. One day, as the Council was convening to discuss humanity's disappearance, a message arrived. It was encoded, but the encryption was surprisingly simple. It was not from the humans themselves, but from a ship on the edge of the galaxy. The signal was faint, but clear. "We are not your problem anymore." The Council was stunned. It was a message that confirmed humanity's escape, but it was more than that. It was a declaration. Humanity had left the galaxy behind, and now they were free to explore a future without the Council's interference. Back on the Nomad's dream, Captain Vance stared at the decoded message. It was from an unknown source, but the content was unmistakable. It was the signature of the humans, the boldness, the defiance that had characterized them from the very beginning. They had left the galaxy, yes, but they had left a message behind a challenge, a warning, a promise. "We are not your problem anymore." Vance stood silently, his gaze fixed on the stars ahead. Humanity had done what no one had thought possible. They had left the galaxy, and now they were free. But he knew, as did the rest of the fleet, that this was just the beginning. They had crossed a threshold into something far beyond the reach of the Council, and whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Humanity was not defeated. Humanity was not gone. They were just getting started. And now, they would find their place in the universe. Far across the galaxy, the Council could only watch as the rift that humanity had created slowly faded from view. They had no answers. No way to track the humans, or follow their path. All they had was the knowledge that humanity, in all its unpredictability and raw power, had broken free. And that was a terrifying thought.